And the biggest event ever in Blood Bowl history was the World Cup 4. Now we are headed into 2023 next year, and it should be the World Cup 5. And if you look at the growth of the World Cups between years, I think the first one had 270 something players, and then it went up, and then it went up, and then they had 1400, I think, in the last one in Dornberg. Now, Ben and I were going to go through the NAF forum because there's a really good breakdown of the process and how it happens and timelines. Unfortunately, the NAF website, renowned for their tech savvy, has had an error 500. So we are still going to talk about the World Cup. It's going to be from memory on this one, so it won't be a massive segment. Now,
and I haven't seen it, so this is going to be quite a challenge.
No, this was our opportunity to kind of talk through what happens with the NAF and the World Cup and what's coming up, and then Ben could ask questions because he's not been involved. And to be fair, I wasn't involved with the World Cup, so we'll start at the top. BT, the NAF is a player association for Blood Bowl that was really big and really important to the continuing kind of being aliveness of Blood Bowl. Obviously, Games Workshop are kind of moving into a position of power, and there's a load more Blood Bowl players that are coming in via Games Workshop now than through the kind of Mason chapters of the NAF as it used to be. Now, I started Blood Bowl in the original edition and then came back for a bit and then went away again, and then kind of it sparked when the 2016 set came back for me. That's when it got really, it's when I really fell into it. And you kind of a few years after that?
Yeah, about 2019. Yeah.
So you kind of joined through Games Workshop as opposed to Blood Bowl.
Essentially.
Yeah. And obviously us at Wobble tricked you into it. Most importantly of all. So the NAF is a player association, and every 4 years there is a Blood Bowl World Cup. And this is the bit where I try to remember from memory, and I didn't copy it into the show notes because I was like, it's fine, we'll just have the thread up and we can talk through it on screen. Anyway, every 4 years there is a World Cup. The last one was run by Torsten, and it was in Dornberg, and like I said, they had 1400. Dornburn, thank you. That yeah, well done. That's good. That's good. See, by memory,
some World Cup knowledge.
Yeah. And the way it works from a bidding process is that if you want to host the World Cup, you have to put together a business case, essentially, to the NAF to say, hey, this is where we want to host it. This is what's available. This is what the prices are likely to be. This is how we're going to run the event. This is what we can provide. And the NAF, I think there's a group of quite a few. I can't remember if it's 30 or 60 people are going to vote based on these bids. Now, in the last session, and this is one thing that is in the NAF thing that I was going to look at as well, they hosted some of the like older bids. I went through and looked a little while ago because there was an absolute cracking one for the Isle of Wight a few years ago. It might have been the one before, it might have been the last one. I know, Ben, I know. I was like, this would be perfect. And then
so near.
Just after the last World Cup, Rob, Secret Carnage Rob, was working together with some Welsh players to put together a bid for Wales. Now, the apocalypse has hit and everything really has changed. And when I say the apocalypse in this regard, I do mean coronavirus. But there was a huge backlash from the last World Cup, which I did want to go through because it is really important that we go through it. But we'll stick to the World Cup at the moment. I was expecting to see Isle of Wight. I was expecting to see Wales. And you know what? There were only 2 bids made. And it is Lyon in France and Alicante in Spain. So those are the 2 bids that have been put forward. Now, timeline-wise, I believe voting starts for the NAF, not general populace, but the NAF kind of selected, the NAF selection committee. I don't know if that's what they're called, but that's what they're called now. Will make the choice, and I think it's published on the 13th of March. So this podcast is coming out on what, the 5th of March. So I wanted to get this out now because this is kind of a prelude. Now, when it comes round to the selection being made and being published, hopefully we'll have a bit more detail on the bid and everything like that, so we can talk about it on the next episode. And believe me, we will be going after the organisers to get them on to talk through what's going to be great, because we missed out on the World Cup because we kind of just getting into Blood Bowl on a medium level and weren't necessarily well up for spending a couple of grand to go and play Blood Bowl. That's not,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a huge investment. I am there now. You know, the channel is there now, I think, where this is something that I just, it can't be missed if you can attend it. And I think the difficulty was the last time the World Cup came around, we kind of got super into Blood Bowl with less than a year to go. So we were like, oh, there's a World Cup going on later this year. That's pretty cool. Didn't realize that it was going to be 1,400 players. You know, this World Cup, I would imagine it will be 2,000, you know, but we should know more around about the 13th. But it will either be Alicante in Spain, or Lyon in France. So
Both awesome locations, to be fair.
yeah, I mean,
lovely place.
they both look really, really nice, and the stuff that's around there looks really, really nice. There's a couple of things from a NAF point of view that has to happen at the World Cup, essentially, and that was what that thread was. And I wanted to kind of go through it, but from memory, it's got to be 3 days, got to be 9 rounds. It is a team tournament. So we'll talk more about what happened last time, I think, in a minute, because I think it's really important to do that. So it has to be 3 days, has to be 9 rounds, and what else is there? They've put a stipulation there that it should be around about September, but there was a bit of chatter from the Lyon group, like, how fixed on that are you? So I don't know what they've got planned. The bids are secret until they're published. So we could see somewhere, I think August would be terrible. Like either of these places.
Yeah, summer holiday, right?
Summer
it's
holiday.
Their peak destination for summer.
Yeah.
Summer trips.
You know, September, October, I think is probably a really great point in time. Like, and
it's also worth noting, even that time of year, both these places are going to be hot.
Yes.
So,
yeah, which is good and bad. You know, it might be nice to be warm. It might be horrible to be warm as a gamer.
The venue is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Alicante is kind of southern Spain. Like, it's just across the water from Algiers. You know, it's it's good. Oh, God, it looks nice though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it will be nice.
And this is it. Like, the World Cup is not just about Blood Bowl. Like, this is a very long way to go to play 3 days of Blood Bowl. Like, I was so impressed with people traveling down to Bournemouth to play 2 days of Blood Bowl. Right? I think that's awesome. I think that's okay. That's a few £100 for a good weekend away of game. Like, that's cool to go play games and come home. If you're traveling abroad to go to a tournament, it goes beyond a tournament at that point. And talking it through with Tiff's like, I'm coming. Like, let's go. Like, let's turn this into a holiday. Let's take the week off. Let's go. Let's spend some nice time. I can boot you around, or, you know, while you're at the tournament. And I don't know. It seems like an adventure, like an actual real. I don't want to say once in a lifetime, because I'm hoping that this is a full yearly thing, but that might be just where my head is. You know, we've just got married last year. Within the next 4 years, is it likely that I'm gonna be able to go away with Tiff to play Blood Bowl? We may have a kid, you know. It was 4 years, you know. We may have 2 kids. Kind of hope not.
Some hobby progress.
What if we have twins? What if we try and have kids and we end up having twins? Man, what if we had triplets? Like, there's no chance we go to the World Cup. You know, 4 years.
An in-house tournament.
Yeah, and it will be. Trust me.
Yeah.
But I mean, 4 years is a massive amount of time. 1 year, well, 1.5 years out now. So this is looking to be around September time, and it's looking to be in either France or Spain. I assume they have to go with one. We'll talk about the last World Cup and some of the difficulties that were had in there. But I mean, Ben, what's your initial thoughts about traveling to a different country to play in a Blood Bowl tournament, a game tournament, any tournament?
I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to. I I just think it would be so awesome to meet people from around the world who play this hobby because it is such a global hobby. I mean, you get people from like America's coming here, you get people from Asia going there, and obviously all of the countries in Europe where it's a huge deal, and in both the countries, France and Spain, Blood Bowl has a huge presence.
It really,
I
it really does. I think those are probably the two.
yeah,
I don't know. It might be bigger in America. I'm not sure actually.
I'm not sure to be fair. It's big. Like I definitely know, like it is big there, and I think just in terms of the destinations. I mean, I've been to Alicante a few times. I've been to France many times. I've specifically been to Lyon, but absolutely beautiful places. And just being in that whole new environment with a whole bunch of new people, I just think that's awesome. It's awesome. It's so cool to have this. I use cool relatively. We all know how cool it is. Um, but it's just so cool to have this as like a sport, like an actual world sport. Like this doesn't happen with a lot of things, and Blood Bowl is still a relatively niche hobby. It feels in times
It's a niche part
to
of a niche
have
hobby.
a world. Yeah, exactly. But to have a World Cup for it, I think that's incredible. And NAF do have their there's some rough edges with the NAF. There's some things that have gone on in previous things, which would, but I think it's just fantastic that they're still doing this because what a way to celebrate the hobby, and at a time that's obviously a little bit like the world's coming together for other reasons, some pretty serious reasons. I think like it's just awesome that people can gather over this.
I completely agree. Like Blood Bowl is so feudal. Like when it comes to leagues and the way we do things and the way we do things at my league and the way we do things in our league and the way like some people are, you know, old school NAF survivalists. I lived through the dark age and now we're back in this new. It's quite disparate and every group has its own vibe. Really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, you have this worldwide celebration of Blood Bowl. I think you called it exactly right, Ben. And that is just so awesome. Like I think it's less about the competition than it is just about having a bunch of going and doing this thing. Like awesome. I'm so up for it. Now, how do you feel about it being called the World Cup? Because it's a weird one because you just build a team. Now, I guess this is probably the best opportunity to go and talk about how the last one went at Dawnburn. I didn't go. It was, it was 3 years ago, so it was kind of like, I don't know. It was a big investment for me. Not the right time in my life to be able to go and do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a team tournament with 6 or 7 players. So you would have 6 playing players in every round. That's 9 rounds. And you could have a 7th player who could sub in. Not from a like, oh, I think we'll run dwarves against this setup. It was just a case of, this person's playing this round, this person's not playing this round. I get like from an operational point of view, I think like I love that. I think that's so good to be able to be like, you know what, you've traveled, you may be tired, you may want to rotate a player out every round so they actually get a bit of rest, so you actually get a bit of time. That bit of flexibility I think was awesome. Team tournaments, we ran a team tournament, didn't we, where there's 4 players on the team.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
The Fobble Wobble Cup, and that was awesome. Like that was so exciting. So team events, absolutely brilliant. Now, how this one's going to be structured, we don't know. Whether it's going to be 6 players or not. Now, the reason I ask you how you feel about it being called the World Cup is because I remember that Rich didn't like the fact that it was called the World Cup because it was an open event as opposed to invitational. He was like, well, the World Cup is, like we've got the England team and we've got the Spain team. But whereas the World Cup here, from a Blood Bowl point of view, you just build a team and sign up. You pay your money, you take your choice, you kind of sign up. And I think like it's a pointless semantic thing. I think it's the World Cup because the World Cup is the big thing in football, in soccer. And I think it's
I mean, I'm looking at their website here, and it says that, so we could get on the NAF one, but they've got a little banner on the old Dawnburn website, which had it was 38 countries. 6 continents, 1,429 coaches. That's a World Cup for me.
Yeah,
38 countries.
absolutely. And I think that's
Yeah,
just so cool.
fantastic.
Now, I don't know what the format's going to be, don't know what the skills are going to be, and I don't know how that's going to work. The last World Cup had a pretty complicated build, um, where there were multiple tiers and multiple skills, and each day had its own kind of like, and then on day 2 you get this, and then on day 3 you get that. I think if you're playing 9 games with a team, you've got to have an element of complexity there beyond it. And I cannot wait for the announcement of the builds. Now, if you are a Blood Bowl podcast listener, there is a podcast called the World Cup Report, which is 2 of the guys from 2 of the American podcasts. And when the last World Cup went through, they broke down some great rosters for every one of the races, given the skills, and it was awesome. Really great podcast. 10 out of 10 recommended. If you're excited for the World Cup, just go back and listen to the old edition if it's still out, because it's really good fun. We will be doing the same thing because it's exciting. You know, we're going to look at the build, we're going to look at the teams, we're going to look at some example rosters because it is such a cool thing. So it'll be a team-based event. It'll be 9 games, probably, over 3 days. We don't know what the build's going to be. We don't know what the rules are going to be. We don't know what the timings are going to be. We don't know what the location's going to be. But it's going to be really exciting. Now, can you imagine running an event for 2,000 gamers? Because let's be realistic, right? It was 1,400 last time. The world has got worse now, but Blood Bowl has got bigger. And even though I think the world has got worse, I still think that the Blood Bowl getting bigger and the fact that we've all been inside for 2 years is kind of going to be like, you know what? Let's do this special thing. And I think we'll see more growth than we will, you know, like staticness to it. I don't know. What do you think? What's your prediction for the amount of players in this one?
I would expect it to be more, purely because of the new edition and the fact that we've all been kind of stuck inside for a while and desperate to get abroad. And I think this is a good excuse to do that.
Yeah, that was Tiff's
At least
angle.
it is for both me and you. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, and your wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if your wife is coming to a Blood Bowl tournament, that shows how desperate times are.
And
Um,
the old bids that I looked through were really, really well put together. They were like, hey, and if you're bringing other halves and families, this is all the stuff that goes on while you're gaming. Really cool.
mhm.
Like the way they put the bids
Yeah, that
together
is
last
cool.
time, so important.
They seem to partner with like tourist companies and things like that as well, don't
Yeah,
they?
I
Is
think
that
I think the
what the last one
France,
was?
I think the Leon bid. I saw a couple of bits that they posted. They've done a really good job on their social media. They posted about them potentially partnering up with a beer company, which is dangerous, but
Oh, that's
also
fantastic.
awesome,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
now,
Supply some cakes. That'd be
yeah,
fantastic.
they both got Facebook pages, and they're both selling on the angle of like the location's gorgeous, the food's amazing, there's a load of touristy stuff to do around there, and you know what? That's all super important if you're running a big event. That was probably one of the downsides about the big event we ran, is that there was some stuff, but it was closed because it was February, and we, you know, even the noodle house that we went to was so busy.
Bournemouth is really nice when it's not grey and rainy.
Yeah, it was kind of horrid. I imagine that Leon
Yeah.
or Alicante in the end of summer gonna be pretty swish.
Mm.
Now, running an event for 2,000 plus Blood Bowlers is a monstrous task, and there were some really great lessons learned from the last World Cup. And the chap who ran it, Torsten, put together a really great after action report, just sort of detailing some of the stuff that went wrong. And the most important thing to remember, and this I think is why we've only seen 2 bids, is because this is like all there is no money to be made running Blood Bowl events. Okay, every time we run a Blood Bowl event, we lose hundreds of pounds. Running a Blood Bowl event for 2,000 people, tens of thousands of pounds. Okay, so you've got volunteers, and it's just all being run by people who want to make something special, to make an event special. And Torsten broke down some of the difficulties they had last time with the software and the preparation. And you know what? I'm reading through it. I'm like, yeah, we've had that happen at our tournament when we had 80 people. You know, is there a problem with software? Not exactly, but actually, you have to. Someone's dropped out. Someone's turned up in someone else's place. You know, someone's turned up with a different roster, and you don't know why. And you know, you've got that, and then multiply it by
Mhm.
50, right? So they had some difficulties with that. There was some skill ring issues last time that I imagine we won't see repeated this time. Awesome idea. The whole idea was like, actually, you know what? We are playing in a multilingual setting. You know, Ben, you and I, we go play at the World Cup. We're going to be playing against somebody who doesn't speak English and I don't speak their language. You know, although whether we go to France or whether we go to Spain, I will learn French or Spanish. I love
You'll
languages.
learn it
I will learn it to a good standard.
fluently. You've
Not
got
not not
18
fluent,
months
but
to
you know,
speak.
somewhere between fluent and English tourists just being louder. Okay, so you know, I've.
We'll take lessons together, and then we'll do a podcast in that language.
Do you know what? I think that would be amazing. And we've actually a couple of Germans have actually said that as well. Like some of our German listeners are
Really?
like, "Oh, do it in German." I'm like, "Oh, I just offend you all with my terrible German." Uh, Also, ich liebe
Yeah, I lost the
Deutsch.
German in year 9.
I love German. German's a great language, but I don't know. You know, Spanish would be great. French would be great. It could be really cool, and yeah, I think that's a great little shout. And we'll do a segment in whichever language, just one segment, maybe hobby, you know, something like that in the language. Anyway, complete by the by. It's just a
Can barely
really
paint a team in time, let alone learn language.
languages are easier. That's what commuting time's all about. Um, Not that either of us commute really anymore.
Mm.
No, Duolingo. It's amazing. Anyway, this is just so special, and it's a big event. If you're running this, this is a huge undertaking, and these people are doing it for the love of it. And that must be the most important thing that we remember. When we run a Blood Bowl tournament, it doesn't go as well as we want it to. We disappoint, you know, I don't know, a couple of people, right, out of 100. When you've got 2,000 people, if you disappoint a couple of people out of 100, you've disappointed 50 people. That's not good maths, but that's the kind of vibe you get, right? And it's big. And I don't know about you, man, but every time you do anything, there are a bunch of people that think it's great, and there are always people who think it's not good, that could be better. And actually, we've got to be really aware going into this World Cup that it is not professional. This is not Wizards of the Coast running an event. This is players getting together and running something monumental. And we need to this is probably the biggest lesson from the last World Cup, is that this is a player run volunteer event. No one's making any money out of this. This is a game day that you're sharing. And I would love to be involved in running the World Cup, but it is just, I can't comprehend, like,
Daunting.
you know, I do a lot of big project work at work, but you do that with a lot of big project teams and big project money. This is Blood Bowl. There's no money to be made, and there's only fun to be had. That sounds really corny, but
And there's only so much time in the day to do it. Like, this isn't like, if it was full time like work, that would make sense. But you know, even though we do this podcast in spare time, and yeah, I mean, you do this podcast and videos and editing on top of that, so it's a lot to handle.
that'd be a
So
sweet
it's a
career if it could
vast
be.
undertaking for everyone.
But yeah,
Yeah, it would.
the World Cup is going to be monstrous and so exciting. But I guess, and I don't want to finish on a negative note, but also last time 1,400 people went. How many people do you think play Blood Bowl, Ben? You know,
I don't. I remember this kicking off. So I was still quite new to Blood Bowl at the time, but I remember this being pretty
it was
pretty vocal.
it was a big flashpoint, because I think I think it was a really difficult point in the NAF's existence, because there was so much fresh blood and the NAF was just
Hmm.
this thing that people did not understand. All of us kind of came back to it, and I used to be a member of the NAF. I don't really remember why, because someone signed me up at a tournament and I got some sweet dice. So I was like, yeah, all right, I'll have some dice, thank you. And then like if you look at Wobble, like 20, 30 coaches, four NAF, maybe five NAF, like, and it's kind of like that's a huge proportion of people that are like, who are these people running the World Cup? Like, why are they this? Why is it bad? Like, what is going on? And I think there was this definite view that something called the World Cup being run by an organization was going to be an esports event run by a team of people that put on promotional events. It's not. This is for gamers by gamers, and that was definitely not understood by a lot of the people coming in. And this is why we're going to be talking about the World Cup as it goes along. Is because if you want to go. If you can afford it, you've got time, go. But you are going to go play at a tournament run by some dudes that love Blood Bowl. You are not going to be playing in an official esports T-sports event. It's going to feel like it. It's going to be costed like it. I think that's probably a really big thing that happened last time. Is they were like, it cost me, it cost our team like $1,000 to sign up, and then 10 grand to travel, and it's just a tournament. Well, yeah, it is just a tournament. So, and this is why I didn't go last time, is because I was like, hang about, that's a load of money to go play Blood Bowl. I can play Blood Bowl at home. Well, that was me. That's my view. Was very different, and my view is very different now. But 1,400 people went last time. We've got 10,000 viewers on YouTube, 10,000 subscribers, and there's 25,000 people signed up to the Facebook group. There's got to be, I don't know, 250,000 Blood Bowl players out there, casuals,
Hmm.
regulars. Maybe 500,000. That's what 3% of Blood Bowlers went last time. So don't worry about being one of the 98% of people that don't go to the World Cup. Um, like if you can't afford it, if it doesn't work for you, you it's Blood Bowl is Blood Bowl, and hanging out and going to tournaments is great no matter where you go. So if you're just coming out of pool, if you're coming to one of our events, if you're going to the NAF Championship, they're all special independent events. And if you can't make it to the World Cup, don't worry about it. There'll be coverage, there'll be stories, there'll be pictures, and if you miss out, it's just 3 days of Blood Bowl. But if you can go, you will be part of something that is incredibly unique, and it's also very special. But you know, it's just it's not what you'd want it to be. I'd want this to be run by Games Workshop once a year and have it be properly done. And I want Sean Plott day 9 to be there with Marshall Sutcliffe doing coverage. But Blood Bowl is not that. Blood Bowl is a game you play with friends,
Hmm.
and this is going to be a gamer run event for gamers by gamers. It just happens to be a really big one in a really cool place, and that's the most important thing to remember, I think. Sorry to be a bit of not a downer, but I think this is a case of this is not like the Pro Tour for Magic. This is just an awesome
Yeah, 100%.
gamer event. Now, Ben, you're going. Let's assume we make
Mm.
it. Let's assume it all ties in nicely. It runs ahead. We go. Uh, from a player point of view, what would you want out of the event?
Oh god, I think I'd like an opportunity to just sort of like talk to a lot of people. Like it's because this is something which like just having the different like we said earlier, but all these different countries just to sort of like see like how they play or like how they painted their teams. Like I know there's good painters all across the world, but you do seem to find some of the stuff that comes out of like Spain and Italy. Miniature painting is just phenomenal, and I think I'd like to see all these like teams and just yeah. I just want to go around talking to people, seeing their teams, getting painting tips, getting playing tips, all that kind of thing. I think it would just be it's just this big social opportunity. I'm just desperate to.
Yeah, that's awesome. So one thing from Magic events that I thought was really good that maybe could translate, You know, you've got 2,000 coaches. If they use, right, well, team events, dropouts are a huge issue, right? If you've got a team of 6 and it's a 6-man team event, some teams might have 7 if they're going to go for that route and have a spare, so that if one of them's ill or hungover, they can't play. But you're going to have to manage this odd man out situation. So there's going to be a lot of coaches that either are waiting for a game or are on a bye, okay, that don't get to play. Side events are done so well in Grand Prix for Magic the Gathering. You can go, you can play if you know, you don't make day 2 or something, but you're there for the weekend, you can go and take place in a side event. One thing I think would be awesome is a zone where you can play 7s. So if you don't get a game, if you drop out, if you know your opponent doesn't turn up, or you know whatever, or you're the spare man or something, actually have a little mini 7s event going on along the side. Actually, you know what, guys, I'll sit this round out. I've got 2 hours. I'll go play a game of 7s. Just have that little side event, because you might just, I don't know, in Magic the Gathering Grand Prix, you know, you could go, you could play in the standard event, but they'd also have like drafts going on and sealed events going on. If you're
Big
like,
commander.
yeah, exactly. So you know what, I lost. I'm done. You know, I've got 2 hours before the next round. Let's go have a draft. Let's go play a game of 7s. I don't know. Let's go play a Dungeon Bowl game. I just think there's so much fun stuff around Blood Bowl.
Yeah, I like how the attitudes of us, this hobby, are so different. Like, you asked me, like, what do you want to get out of it? I'm just like, I just want to see people and their toys. And you're like, right, logistics is, if this event happens, how can we address that and how can we make it entertaining? Like, and I'm just like, toys.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is fair,
Really toys.
but you know, you travel to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Right. I work with a guy called Jim. He was at Beachhead. He didn't play Blood Bowl because he's a fool. He played in the Age of Sigmar tournament. He went 0-3 on day 1 and then turned up on day 2, as you should. And his first game was a bye because his opponent didn't turn up, because I went 0-3 on day 1 and turned up and I'm not going to bother. So James then spent 3.5 hours doing nothing. Now, he was hungover, so Jim was like, you know what, this is fine. Like, first opponent didn't show up. I can just go get some breakfast, chill out, go look at people's models and have a nice time, see what's going on, go chat with Ben, you know, on the Blood Bowl side, you know. And then Jim rocked up to round 5 and his opponent didn't turn up again, so he got another bye. So Jim spent his entire day 2, that's 2 matches, that's 6 hours of his life doing nothing. And that's money that he paid. That's time that he hasn't travelled because he lives in Bournemouth, but you know, he'd still taken time out to do that. And if you're playing in the World Cup, 9 games, you know what, if you have to skip 1 game, you know what, there are going to be a ton of people that are like, you know what, that's fine, you know, it's game 7, I've won 1 game, that's absolutely fine, like, I don't mind, like, I'll just go sit and drink myself happy, or you know, that's okay. But just you got a budget for those buy situations, for those player drop situations, and that is a massive logistic issue that, I don't know. And you know, Ben, you and I are games masters, right? We are dungeon masters. That's who we are. We build things that don't exist so that people have things that don't exist that are real. We're world builders, and I want people to be able to do stuff. You know, if I'm going to travel to Lyon, I don't want to not. I'm going to go there to play Blood Bowl, and you've got to have stuff going on, and that's probably a really.
That is very true.
That's I think one of the bits of feedback from the World Cup last time was like, we've travelled a really long way to do this, and it's gone wrong, and I've just spent 4 hours waiting for stuff, and that's not great because I've travelled this far. I mean, I felt bad that there's, you know, some people who travelled like a couple of hours, you know, for our tournament, and there was like a 5-minute delay into one of the rounds. I was like, oh, this is the worst thing in the world. Like, I've killed these people's families. This is terrible. You know, that's how I felt emotionally. But, you know, imagine that they traveled from around the world, and instead of having 3 games on one day, it goes down to 2 because of massive issues and stuff. Like, it's just, that's the stressor for me. That's, I guess, why I go straight into logistics. I don't know, man. This just makes me want to run the 2027 World Cup. But I feel like that would be bad but also would be amazing, and we could do it in the UK, and even if Europe hates us.
There's time. There's time to consider that.
Oh yeah,
That's a lot of planning.
yeah,
Yeah.
lot of planning, and potentially children in the meantime. I don't know, just have to like keep buying cats to buy myself time. Yeah, interesting one, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to see who wins. I don't care who wins. They both look like great people. They've both got great companies backing them up as well, which is pretty cool. Last time, I think every World Cup, or the last couple of World Cups, they've had a custom team designed for the World Cup as well, which is pretty sweet. So you can get your ticket and get your World Cup team. Like, that's something pretty good. Fanath has signed up to support the Alicante bid, so I guess I'm leaning a bit towards that, because Fanath do some real good stuff, and if Fanath make a World Cup team, I'm going to want to buy that team because I love Fanath. In fact, they dispatched the High team.
Definitely.
So that should be coming soon. That'd be exciting. Yeah, so World Cup, we don't know anything more than that, not really right now, but it's going to be a big gamer event run by great gamers just for a great game, and that's enough. That's more than enough. This is a party, not a conference, and I think that's something we've all got to be really, really, really aware of, because you know what, guys, parties are kind of fun, so that's great. Anyway, that's enough, I think, for the World Cup for now, until next episode, where hopefully we'll know more detail and we can hopefully grab some of the organizers and get them on. But I think, Ben, should we move on?
Let's move on.
All right. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.